Khalees, did you drink from this?
No.
Water!
Hello everyone, welcome to episode 2 of our survival game series. I've got a lot planned for us today, but first let's start off with a quick recap of what we were able to accomplish in the first video. We took our third-person template character and added a few variables like health, stamina, hydration, and sleep using float variables, which is a value from 0 to 1. We have those displayed on screen using a stats widget. On the stats widget itself, it has a few progress bars to display them on screen. We have it set up to the top left of our viewport there in the stats widget itself. We also added that to the viewport at begin play, and also at begin play we set up some timers for our stats here to, except for health, to slowly decrease over time. Now the amount of time is set up by these inputs here in green, and they're going to continue to loop indefinitely until we actually take these handles from the timer and pause them. Now in this video, the goal is to first get everything organized in this project. Then I want another actor that our third-person character blueprint can interact with, and that is going to replenish our stats, and we can go ahead and litter the ground with that other actor. So first things first, we need to organize our project a little bit. On the left side in our content browser, we have all of these folders, and they actually are pretty disorganized right now. We haven't really spent a great deal of time on organization on this channel, but it is something to keep in mind because there's two reasons. First, if you leave a project for a long period of time, like 6 months, and you come back to this project, it's really difficult to find things that you were working on if they're not clearly labeled and organized. Secondly, and kind of similarly, if you start working on a project by yourself, but then later on a couple other people want to help you on that project and nothing's clearly labeled and it's really hard to navigate through the folders, you really need to spend some time organizing those folders. That way everyone's on the same page, everyone can go ahead and navigate the project easily, and it'll really save on time. So really the only thing that I'm going to do in this project is put everything in my starter content folder, and I'm actually going to rename it assets. Now whenever we start to reorganize our folders, you're going to see this happen a lot. It's going to have to, in the back end, rename all of the navigation and clean up those old assets. Alright, so now we have this folder renamed, and because it includes everything, I usually set the color just to a pure white for the assets, and that's going to be my main folder. For geometry, we can go ahead and expand assets and just add the geometry to the props. Now our geometry folder is empty. With the mannequin, it has some animations and it has some characters, so I'm just going to add the animations to the assets. Now we have a whole folder for animations. And with the mannequin, we still have the character folder. We'll probably just move the whole mannequin folder into the assets. Just something that works for you. We do have the third-person geometry here. They're really just meshes, so I'm going to go ahead and select them all and move them into the props folder. Lastly, we have our third-person blueprint maps. Well, we only really have the one map, don't we? So go ahead and select these and move it into the maps folder under assets. And for third-person blueprints, I'm just going to move all these blueprints into the actual blueprints folder. Alright, so now we have all these empty folders here. Actually, this is still here, the third-person template tutorial, but you don't need that since you got me. And you may notice if you save your project, go ahead and select all these folders. Sometimes they don't actually get deleted when you do that. We're going to delete all 6 of these folders. Sometimes they will remain and you actually have to go to your File Explorer in order to go ahead and delete them once you close the project. So there's a couple different mindsets that people have whenever they're doing organization. Like for the mannequin, for example, some people do like to have their mannequin materials and mesh and textures right next to their blueprint for their character that's using the mannequin. And for me, I actually don't need that. I actually like to have the mannequin with other meshes, like the props. So I'm actually going to go ahead and rename props to just meshes. And there are two types of meshes that are prevalent inside of the engine. There are static meshes, which all of these are static meshes. So let's go ahead and move all these, except for the materials, but I'm a little too lazy right now to go ahead and move all the materials into these folders properly. So now we have all the static meshes here inside of the static meshes folder, and I'm going to go ahead and move mannequin into meshes, but I'm just going to rename it skeletal meshes. So inside of meshes, we're going to rename this skeletal meshes. Shapes are also static meshes, so let's go ahead and move shapes into the static mesh folder. The architecture folder is also full of static meshes, so let's go ahead and move the architecture into the static meshes. We just have to expand here, move that right into the static mesh folder. So HDRI is a texture. I'm just going to move that folder into our textures folder, make it a little bit easier. And you can see our shapes folder actually didn't disappear. Let's go ahead and try to delete that. We might have to save all and delete. And this is perfect. This is actually exactly how I like my organization set up. All of the animations are in the animations folder. We can go ahead and further organize this by putting all of the blueprints and blend spaces into their own folders inside of the animation folder, and all the actual animation sequences in their own folder. One thing that I do like to do is color code. So we're going to go ahead and select a new color. And I always use this little line here to set the folder color to that little line, and by heart I know all the colors. It's really easy to do that. For audio, we're going to go ahead and set it to this purplish color. Nice. Of course, blueprints have that really nice blue color. Makes sense with the name. Maps have an orange color, and we'll just continue to do this just with the color picker. Perfect. So now we have some very well done color-coded content organized here in the content browser. In the blueprints folder, we're actually going to organize this a little bit more, but I'm going to add a new folder, and this is going to be our characters folder. And let's actually add one more called widgets, and we'll go ahead and put all of our widgets in here. We're going to set these to the blue as well. We'll move our third person character. Oh, didn't mean to open that. In there, and we'll go ahead and set up our widgets in here. And I'll put my third person game mode in there as well. I'll just move all these to the assets folder. So now I can easily navigate the content browser and get whatever I need really easily just by kind of following the little pathways that I set up for myself. Alright, last bit of organization here. We're going to go ahead and rename our third person character. And what are we going to rename him to? We're going to call it Master Character. I'm going to set this up in such a way so that our master character has all of the aspects of being alive. That way every character we have in the game can just be a child of our master character, and we don't have to set up any sort of health or anything like that from scratch for any other characters. We'll just do it once for our master character, and we can go ahead and even branch off, create a child for our player character from that master character, and add some more functionality to our player character than we do for the NPCs. So our master character is just going to kind of be like a shell of a living thing, and all of the children underneath it are going to be actual NPCs in our player. And for some better organization later on, we should probably create another folder just for our player character, and that's going to be like a subfolder for our characters folder, and then the other one can just be NPCs. And if we want actually more than one playable character, we can do player characters. Alright, so the next thing we're going to do is create a child of our master character, so we can create a playable character. And you know what, we'll go ahead and call this master player character. In case we want to create multiple playable characters, we can all have them be children of this master player character. And we'll go ahead and put that into the player characters folder. One thing that we're not going to want inside of our master character is these timers. because even the NPCs are going to be affected by these timers if we have them on our master character. We only want them to be on our playable characters. We also don't want these widgets to spawn and be displayed to the viewport for all of the NPCs as well. Let's go ahead and drag off of this, cut, and then we're going to open our player character and paste. So all of this functionality will not be applied to the NPCs, only the player characters. Now remember that anything we do to the master character, which is the master of all the characters, will also affect our master player character. One thing that we should do, since in our variables we actually don't see our health or stamina or hydration or sleep, we'll go ahead and click this little eyeball here. That way we can go ahead and change those on our instances of our master player characters. Now since we've clicked those eyeballs, if we put a master player character in the level, here on the right we can go ahead and set up these stamina, hydration, and sleep that they start off with. And since we have the master player character in the level, we can go ahead and delete the old one that we had on there, which is actually a reference to the master character, not the master player character. And to make sure that we possess our master player character, let's go down to the bottom on the details panel. And for auto possess player, we want it to be player 0. That way when we go ahead and start the game, we're going to possess this instance of the master player character. So even if we put like 20 more in the level, we're going to possess this specific one. Alright, so you've made it this far into the tutorial and it's been a lot of housekeeping items, organization, boring stuff, but really important for later videos. Let's go ahead and close our master player character. We're going to go ahead and set up a couple functions that'll let us increase our stats, and then we're going to create an actor so that we can call those functions when we bump into it. Alright, so in the last video we set up some functions to decrease our stamina, hydration, and sleep. What we can do really quickly, another housekeeping organization thing, is give it their own category, and we can call this timers decrease. And we'll go ahead and just drag and drop all of these into the timers decrease category. We can go ahead and expand and contract that little category here. It makes it easier for organization, of course. You know, that's me in this video apparently. So we set this up last video, and we're going to keep those for the timers. If you open these up, you'll see that they don't have inputs because inputs don't really work well with timers in Unreal. So what we're going to do is we're going to create some other functions that are not for the timers, and they're going to go ahead and change our stats like stamina, hydration, and sleep. Also health, since we're going to need to change our health as well. So let's go ahead and do that. And what I'm going to do is duplicate the decrease stamina function. And I'm going to go ahead and take it out of the category. I'm just going to put it in the default category. And let's open that up because it's already open. So it's really easy to go ahead and just change these things. This is going to be called change stamina. Now, why is it called change stamina? Because I want an input to be here when we call the function, and the input is going to be the amount that we will change our stamina by. So a really easy way to do that, to create an input and for it to know exactly what we want to do, is to go ahead and drag this pin here and drop it into the node. But I'll show you the old-fashioned way. First, we need to click on the node here, which is the beginning of the function, and on the details panel you will see inputs and outputs. Let's go ahead and just click on inputs to add a new one, and you'll see that it appears right here. We can have a whole bunch of different types of inputs, but the one that we need is a number value. A float will be perfect for this because our stamina is already represented by a float, so we can just subtract our float by a float really easily. And so we're going to change it from a boolean to a float, and we'll just give it a quick name. This is going to be amount of change. And we can go ahead and plug this right in. Instead of the 0.05, the amount that we type in for our stamina input, our change stamina input, is going to be the amount that our stamina is subtracted by. But what does that input do? I'll show you. We've gone over this on the channel before, but it's really helpful. If we go to the event graph and we just drag and drop that change stamina function, we'll see that we have this amount of change option here. And whatever we type in here, and we can manually change it to anything, and we can literally change it to 1, and then we'll go ahead and subtract our stamina by 1. So when the function is called, it'll take this value right here and it'll go ahead and plug it in to this input here. So our stamina will be subtracted by whatever was plugged in here, which would be what was typed in here. It all leads back. So in this case, it would be subtracted by 1 if this was called with a 1 here, which means it would just straight go into the negative and it would be set to that amount, but it would check to see if that was less than 0, and then if it was in the negative, it would automatically set it to 0 again. Functions are really nice because they are set up in a way to just be called and be completed in one frame. You won't even notice that it was ever set to less than 0 because the next frame you'll actually just see it at 0. But why did I call this change stamina instead of decrease stamina? Well, one is because we already have decreased stamina here under the timer's decrease, but another one is because I'm actually going to add a float to a float. And that will make it more accurate because we can change it. And the cool part about functions again is if you type in -1, then it'll go ahead and plug in -1, which will actually subtract the stamina. So this is a very versatile function since it can change the stamina either positive or negative with the same function. But since this function is change stamina and we are changing the stamina both up and down, we don't only have to check to see if we're at 0 stamina or below, we also need to check to see if we're at full stamina or above. So we'll drag off of our stamina again, we'll check to see if the float is above 1. We'll go ahead and set up another branch off of this branch. Go ahead and plug those in. Branches are really nice because you can kind of chain them together. So what do we want to do if our stamina is above 1? Well, we want to go ahead and set our stamina to 1. That way we are never above 100% stamina. So this is a slightly more complicated function than what we had in the last video. No matter what, we're going to go ahead and change our stamina by an amount that's set on the call of the function itself. That input will go ahead and change our stamina. It'll set our stamina to that return value. We'll then check to see if the new value is less than or equal to 0. If it is, we'll go ahead and set our value for stamina to 0. If it's not, we're going to then check to see if our stamina is greater than 1. If it is, we'll set our stamina to full stamina. And if it's neither less than or equal to 0 nor greater than 1, we're just going to do nothing, and that is when the function stops. Whew. Okay, so that was kind of a lot to go over. And we're not even done yet. We need to create a change hydration, change sleep, and a change health. Health is going to end up being a little bit more complicated than the stamina, hydration, and sleep because if we do get less than or equal to 0, we're going to end up calling another function to kill us. But that will be for another video. The next thing that we're going to do is just create the change, hydration, sleep, and health really quickly, the exact same way that we set up the change stamina. I'm going to fast forward through this since we just went through this in depth, and they're going to be literally the exact same. Awesome. So now I have these functions here that are exactly the same way as the stamina, except at the end they're the same as the beginning. Sleep, sleep, health, health, health. And like I said, health is going to get a little bit more complicated later on, but don't worry about it during this video. To keep everything organized, I'm just going to go ahead and create a new category just called stats change. And we're just going to drag all these into our stats change category. And also, you know what, for our variables, let's go ahead and create a category for these, and we're just going to call this stats. Drag health, stamina, hydration, and sleep all into there. So one of the benefits to categorizing our variables after we compile and save is since they're all editable, instance editable, we can go ahead and go here. And if we click on our master player character that's in the level, instead of it just being under a general tab, the tab itself will be named stats, the same name as our category that we gave our master character. Okay, awesome. So now we have a very organized character and project. What's the next thing we need to do? We need to create another actor to interact with and call one of these functions. Let's go ahead and create another actor. We're just going to right click, you know what? Let's keep it organized. So let's go under blueprints, and we're going to create another folder. This is going to be called pickups. Same color, just because all blueprints in my book should have a blue folder, but this is totally preference for you as long as it's consistent with your project. Okay, so once we have the folder for pickups, we're going to want to go in, create a blueprint, create an actor, and there's a few ways that we can go about this. We can create just one pickup and, you know, create another actor for another pickup, but we're going to do this the same way we're doing our character, and we're going to create a master pickup, and all of our other pickups are going to be children of this master pickup, and they're all going to inherit its functionality. So let's go ahead and open up the master pickup. One thing that each of our pickups is going to need is a collision capsule. So let's go ahead and type in collision, and let's do a sphere collision. Just so we can see it in the level, let's go ahead and drop it in there. If we minimize this here, we can change the radius and see in the viewport, it's actually a little too big. We can change it in real time so we can see our interaction radius, or what our interaction radius is going to be once we set up the functionality. I like using even numbers, so 180 is going to be my sphere radius. Very nice. One thing we're also going to need is a static mesh. And I'm going to have that parented to the default scene root. And I'll have the sphere parented to the static mesh. So wherever the static mesh goes, that is where the sphere is going to go, which is good because if the static mesh, you know, moves from the default scene root, if we give it some collision or if we give it some simulating physics and it starts flying down a hill or something, the sphere is going to be following the static mesh and not just stay where the location for the default scene root is. Very nice. So what static mesh do we want to use? Lucky for you, I spend a little bit of time, I mean, not a lot of time, creating some very, very bad 3D models. They're really bad, low poly, and really low quality texture to them. Single texture. But I think they're going to be fun to use for this project. At least for me. Yeah, they're really low quality assets, but I did make them with love. So if we go here, we can go ahead and see that I've made a bed so that we can replenish sleep. I've made some bottled water for our thirst, meat for, I mean, it's just literally it's raw meat. And yes, each one has just one texture, and the resolution is 512 by 512, so they're really low quality, but it gets the point across. Of course, these are just placeholders. You know, this isn't going to be our final anything. This isn't going to be our final static mesh for the game. And then I do have a med kit in there for health as well. So I'm going to go ahead and minimize this just to keep our organization the same. I'm going to create a folder under our static meshes, and this is going to be pick up meshes. Very nice. We'll start off with the medkit. And when importing the FBXs, and I did make these FBXs on purpose, they're actually really, really easy to import. Just hit import all. It's really simple. It'll go ahead and automatically make a material if you do that. The material will not automatically have the texture on it, so we need to open that up, get rid of the basic parameter, and then we're just going to drag that texture on here and plug that into the base color. That'll go ahead and fix that material right up. We can see the medkit is just a small little beveled square. Really easy. And I'm actually just going to create another folder just for all these materials and textures to go into for these pickup meshes. I'm going to do the same with the meat. Go ahead and just drag that in. Import all. For some reason these materials just are terrible. Oh, this should be called medkit. And I always do M underscore, M meaning material. We should actually make these material instances. We can actually set that up in the next video. So this is going to be really simple. I'm actually going to fast forward through this too because it's a lot of the same. And lastly, the bed, actually, I didn't even make a material for. It wasn't important, and the bed comes with two things. It comes with the bed, and it comes with the pillow. And it should be scaled just about right for the character. I mean, my bed's pretty big. And if I didn't mention before, these assets will be down in the description box below, of course, for free. You don't have to use them. You can use any meshes that you want. I'm just using them because they're simple, and I made them, and they're fun. And my water bottle has my name on it. Pretty cool, and a little smiley water droplet. But yeah, you can really see how low resolution this is, and low polygon count. Ridiculous. Okay, so now that we've gone ahead and done that, let's go to our blueprints again. To our pickups and our master pickup, and we're just going to need one by default. We're really never going to see this static mesh, but you know what? Let's go ahead and call it Von D. Let's make it the bottled water. Wow, that is tiny. In the level, it's a decent size though. Maybe even a little bit too big for our hand, but you know, not the end of the world. So we have an interaction radius with our static mesh. And with our sphere, that's our interaction radius that we're going to use. And we could do a simple, when this component, our sphere, begins to overlap, we can cast to our player, and see if blah, 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 and all that. But what we need to do is think about other things that are going to interact with our player character. Not only is our player character going to be interacting with pickups, it's also going to be interacting with weapons. It's also going to be interacting with merchants and other NPCs. And, maybe we'll want him to start mining and crafting and planting. And he's going to interact with more than just pickups. So what we need to do is make sure that our player has the ability to do that. And if we're doing it in such a limited way, like just casting to our player, we might run into some problems later down the road. So what I'll do is I will get our master player character. I don't want to do the actual master character because the actual master character is going to affect NPCs, and NPCs aren't going to need what we're adding right here. What we're adding is an interaction radius. If you followed any of the other videos, which I hope you have, if you've gotten this far, you'll know that I like to use the capsule collision. Flip 90 degrees for an interaction radius. It's really easy to do. Just go ahead and do 90 degrees in the Y, and we'll go ahead and elongate this capsule. It makes it really easy to interact with things that are in front of you, and if you make it wide enough, you can even interact with things that are somewhat around you. It also follows your character, so if you turn or anything, the capsule will always be in front of you since it is parented to the capsule component at the top. This original inherited capsule component, which you can't get rid of since it is inherited from the base character class. So like I said, I like using even numbers, so I'm going to do 180 and 80, and this is going to be our capsule collision. Anything that collides with that capsule will be within our radius. As long as we can interact with it, then we should be able to hit a button or something like that. So, perfect. Alright, so let's go ahead and rename our capsule to interaction radius. That way we know anything that gets into this, we're going to be interacting with. And as if I haven't introduced enough new concepts into this video, let's go ahead and create something called a blueprint interface. Now, what the heck is a blueprint interface? I know when I was starting out, I had no idea what the heck these things were. They look super weird when you start using them. But on any blueprint, so whether it's the pickup or the master player character, every single blueprint has some class defaults and some class settings. In the class settings, you'll see that there's an entire tab under the defaults tab for interfaces. And by default, you don't have any interfaces implemented. But you can always add some. And there's a bunch in the background that you can go ahead and choose from. But we're going to make our own. But what is an interface? An interface is just the absolute easiest way that I can even imagine for blueprints to talk to each other. They can talk to each other if they have an interface implemented, even if they don't have variables referencing each other, if they don't have logic set up in the event graph to go talk to each other to, go through the level and try to find anything. If we don't have, things set that are editable instances in the level, it's just really easy for every single instance in the level to talk to every other instance in the level as long as they all implement the interface. And that's pretty vague. I know it's really vague, but just kind of go with me here because we're going to create a blueprint interface right now. And I'm just going to do it probably just in the regular blueprints tab. Let's go ahead and go to blueprints down here in the create advanced asset. And I guess I would consider this to be advanced. Just follow along. If you don't quite know what you're doing at this point, totally fine. I didn't the first time I did it either. So we're just going to click on Blueprint Interface. What are we going to call it? Well, BPI, Blueprint Interface, _ interaction. Alright, so now we have a blueprint interface and we even named it. Open it up and it looks weird, man. It looks weird. We got some functions up here. Each of those functions can have inputs and outputs, but what does that even mean? Well, everything that implements this blueprint interface it's basically getting functions added here under the functions tab, and that'll actually happen. Let's go ahead and do that. Let's go to our master pickup, class settings, and implement the BPI interaction. Nothing was added because actually BPI doesn't have anything yet, but let's add something. And the something that we're going to add is called enter player radius. So immediately we'll have this interfaces and we'll have the enter player radius function. We can't give it any functionality inside of the blueprint interface itself, since every single blueprint that interfaces with this will want its own unique thing to happen when it's called. Now if we go ahead and implement the function, we'll see that it creates an event on our master pickup. Awesome. That's perfect. That's exactly what we wanted to do. And what we're going to do on the enter player radius is we're going to enter an input. And the type of input is going to be something weird. I don't think we've quite done this yet. It's going to be a master player character object reference. And let's just give it a name, player character. So what does that do? Once we do that, we can go ahead and drag off of the person or the instance of the player that is now in the radius of this pickup. So pretty cool, right? Now we have access to that player without ever setting a variable or anything. And you might actually need to see it in action to kind of understand that. Now on our master player character side, we do have this interaction radius, and we want to do the typical begin overlap on that radius. And the other actor that we overlap, this is why the blueprint interfaces are so handy. We can go ahead and search for does implement interface. That way we can ignore everything that doesn't implement the BPI interaction. And we're going to go ahead and do a branch. So this is perfect. I love the blueprint interfaces specifically because of this. Because we can start overlapping with a bunch of stuff and things that do crazy stuff and targets and goals and flags and races and stuff. And all those blueprints that our interaction radius is overlapping, it's just going to quickly check to see if we can interact with them. And of course, everything that we want to interact with is going to have the interface BPI interaction. And so when we do begin overlapping with that thing that can be interacted with, we simply just want to call enter player radius. So once we go ahead and call enter player radius, we do need to go ahead and plug in the other actor as our target, and then we need to tell it exactly who we are. Who's the player character that's interacting with it? I am. So under our master pickup, we're going to go ahead and test this out really quickly. And under event enter player radius, we're going to go ahead and grab off of our player character. What are we going to do? We're going to change our hydration. How much are we going to change it by? 50%. And then we're going to destroy ourselves. So what does this mean? When our master player character begins to overlap with us with this interaction capsule, he's going to check to see if we can be interacted with. Yes, we can, because we have this implemented, the BPI interaction. Then he's going to call enter player radius for the thing that he is in the radius of, which will be us, so it'll call this event. Then we're going to change his hydration by 0.5 in the positive and destroy ourself. Let's see if that works. Nice. So that's perfect. So what are the benefits of a blueprint interface? Well, first of all, being able to exclude anything that doesn't implement the interface is a huge plus. That makes it really easy to deal with blueprints being all around the level and only wanting to call a specific function for things that can be interacted with. Another reason is because it's really easy to implement different functions from the blueprint interface on the actual item that's being interacted with. All right, but let's go ahead and delete that for our master pickup, and for our static mesh, let's blank that out. We're going to create some children now from our master pickup. And I promise this video is long and we've done a lot. I told you we had a lot planned, but this is going to be the last thing that we'll do. We're going to go ahead and save, and we'll create a child blueprint. This is going to be pickup underscore hydration. And we'll create more for all of the other ones. We'll do pickup health, we'll do pickup stamina, and pickup sleep. And that's perfect. So now we have pickups for each of the stats that we want to go ahead and change. If we open up, let's say hydration first, we can redo exactly what we did. This is going to be our bottled water. And even though under our class settings we don't have anything implemented for interfaces, we do have still the inherited BPI interaction, which is why the enter player radius is here on the left. Let's go ahead and implement the function. We're going to call change hydration, just like we did earlier. Change it to 0.5, and then we can destroy ourselves. Destroy actor self. So this should work exactly like we had it before. And we can do the same for stamina. Delete all of these, implement that. We're going to change stamina, do it in the 0.5, and destroy our actor. The static mesh that we're going to use for this is the meat. All right, sleep is going to be a little bit different. Not a lot different, only a little bit. So we're going to go ahead and implement this, and we're going to change our sleep. I'm going to change it by 1 because if you sleep, hopefully you get a full night's rest. We're going to destroy actor after we do that. And I'm actually going to add another static mesh to this one. This is why it's really nice to have children. So we're going to go ahead and add this bed here, and the material that I'm going to use, let's do something like a basic floor. And then I'm also going to add a pillow, and we'll just put this somewhere on the bed. Let's call this pillow 1. Duplicate that, and we have pillow 2. So pillow 2 we can just move slightly over on the side. Comfy, comfy. And both of these guys can have basic wall. Luckily, even though we've added 2 new things to this actor, when we destroy actor, the self actor is going to be everything, this whole actor, including these new components that we added. So we don't have to worry about these sticking around after we destroy the actor. And for change health, let's open the full blueprint editor. And the static mesh that we're going to use is the medkit. Very nice. Implement this, and we're going to change our health. Medkit will bring us to full. Let's destroy the actor after we've used it. Perfect. Now would you look at that? We've got a master pickup and a whole bunch of other little ones. And we can just scatter these around the level. The bed is really huge, so be careful with that. We can always change the sizes and everything. All right, and that's perfect. So we have all of these laid out all over the level. We can go ahead and start playing and interact with them as necessary. So my hydration levels are getting pretty low. Let's go ahead and interact with this. Perfect. My interaction capsule might be a little bit too long, so I might change that a little bit, but that's just one of the small things that we can change at any time. So this is some really basic way to go ahead and replenish your stats. Later on, we can go ahead and make it a little nicer. We can add some animations and some screen effects. That way we really know when we're going to go ahead and use these items. So one last thing that we're going to do is open up our pickup for health, and I'm going to apply this to all of the pickups that we have. So I'm going to add a variable. We're going to call it change amount. And this is actually going to be a float here. And what I'm going to do is have a default value of 0.5, but I'm going to add instance editable on here. That way when I plug it into the amount changed, if I go to a medkit in the level, click on it, under the details panel, under default, we'll have the change amount, the variable that I just set up, and the default amount that I set up as well. But we can change this even into the negative. If I go negative 0.5, now it'll take away health if I pick up this medkit. We can change the exact amount that we want this specific instance of the medkit to give to our character or take away from our character if we go in the negative. I'm going to do that for each of my pickups really quickly. I'm going to fast forward through this as well. So I have all of these set up and I can change each specific instance's amount here in the details panel. Just to demonstrate, I'm going to click on my bed and I'm going to change it to -1, where normally it's just full 1 and it'll go ahead and fill up your sleep automatically. If I go to it, now my sleep is completely drained. So that's a good example of it. Alright, so we accomplished a lot. Hopefully you're ready for the next video in the survival series. I'm really looking forward to it. I think you're going to love it. Hopefully you're learning a lot. That's really the core of this series. I think I just want to get beginners into a place where they can start developing their own games, whether they be simple or complex. Eventually we're going to get into an inventory system, and we're going to have detrimental effects happen to our character if their stats are low for too long, and we'll start to carry weapons, and there's going to be horror elements, and it's going to be really cool. So stick around. Thank you so much for watching.
That's gonna bring this video to a close. Thank you for watching, and thank you to my new camera person, my niece Khalees. You want to say something? Come on, you were thinking of it over there.
Hi.
All right, that's deep. That's deep. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. We're here to help you think like a game developer, so stick around for more videos like this. All right. That's it. My niece Khalees.
Ow.
You want to say anything? Directly to the audience. Just look them in the eye.
Hi.
Alright, that's good. She's never been on video before.
Hi. My name's Jen.
Please don't say that.
My name's Jen.
I'll be like, what the heck? This.
Hi.
Okay. I'll leave that in.